It's it's self-interested because of personal disappointment that their lives were somehow radically altered for the negative, and they blame Donald Trump, and therefore they're going to do something that they know never works, form a third party maybe to express their anger that Trump did not agree with them on 100% of the issues, but more like 80 to 90%. And the
So this is Victor Davis Hanson. He's going to make the case that Tucker Carlson is about to make the worst mistake of his career, and you, the American people, could pay for it. Victor Davis Hanson believes Tucker's break with Trump is no longer simply about some disagreement over Iran. Tucker has radically changed. He has become this personal vendetta, and it's fueled by a lot of lost access, wounded pride, this false sense of influence. And now Tucker is going to help build a third party that is going to split the very voters who created this MAGA America First movement. But Victor Davis Hanson brings up so many good points about Tucker, his real motive, and whether it's about attacking Trump, the man, or if he is up to something bigger. I want you to listen carefully to what he said, because this fight could reshape the American right, the entire conservative movement. I'll fight you in the comments down below. Do you support Tucker Carlson? Do you support what he's trying to do? Do you think a third party is a good idea? I believe that's what led us to the Clintons. Ross Perot, he divided the vote.
that the left, at least until recently, didn't agree with him with more than five. It's kind of like saying, well, I'm going to support the transgender movement. I like that about the Democrat. I like the New Green Deal. I like DEI. I kind of like that open border, but it's not.
If that's what you want, then Tucker's third party could very well be the answer.
Elected leaders should serve out their terms. I don't hate Trump personally. So with all of that said, the second any president actively considers first use of nuclear weapons, that person should be removed from office immediately, because that's got to be the red line, destroying all of humanity with a nuclear strike. I mean, so why isn't there an attempt to remove him from office, like immediately?
So have you heard President Trump say anything about using nuclear missiles, nuclear weapons? I have not. Tucker obviously has access to people that have, and he just came out with this interview with Joe Kent, and they lay out some circumstantial evidence as to why Trump should be impeached, should be removed. And who would fall in line then?
Anyone who would even tolerate that kind of talk from any of his subordinates or employees is, by definition, unfit. That's the total destruction of the world, no?
Yeah, the contrast is pretty wild. I mean, they wanted to impeach President Trump before because he had the audacity to question if, mail-in ballots were legitimate or not. And he said, go march peacefully and patriotically onto the Capitol to protest this election.
So this is Joe Kent. He resigned in disgrace. They're going to bring up the fact that Trump told people to go peacefully to the Capitol. That is how close that they think we came to an insurrection. They believe peacefully protesting at the Capitol, your Capitol, is the same as deploying a nuclear weapon. Are you starting to understand how this game is being played?
However, he has threatened to annihilate an entire civilization, and the so-called opposition party, they seem to be completely okay with that. I mean, every now and again, in a hearing, they'll throw out some barbs and jabs about, oh, didn't you know that your interceptors were being depleted? But there doesn't seem to be any actual, pushback from the Democrats. And I think this really points to the true bipartisan consensus in Washington, D.C., which is they always want more war.
So this is where Joe makes the case for the three-party system. He threw the Democrats under the bus, threw the Republicans under the bus. The only answer is Tucker Carlson, Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Joe Kent. This could be your very well be your next Secretary of War, Joe Kent. Now, this interview was a lot to get through, and I'm going to show you a couple of clips here from the interview that really kind of make me scratch my head.
Why he's not doing that, I have no idea, but that points back to why I think we do need to assess all of the potential external factors and, even the factors that are much darker and some would even say are kind of conspiratorial, because at the end of the day, nothing that we're doing right now is logical whatsoever. Our relationship with Israel.
I would agree with that. Conspiratorial, and not logical. I would agree with both of these guys admitting what they're saying is not logical. And let's blame everything on Israel. Let's take no account on the previous administration, the Biden administration. Let's take no account about the Obama administration actually funding Iran. Let's not think about that.
With Joe Kent, and I want to apologize, I said kid in an earlier podcast with Sammy, but it's Kent. Would he, I think he ran for Oregon Congressman Jack twice and lost. Both with he came close, and he had the endorsement of Donald Trump. Would he have ever been appointed as a Homeland Security National Advisor? No. He would never. He would have never been appointed. And was he going to go out? Yes. And you can go on. Thomas Massie. Would Thomas Massie ever have said that he is going to start a third party in, say, his third consecutive congressional term when he's getting all his adulations?
No. Thomas Massie would not. But now that he's been primaried, now that he's gone, he's got to, maintain some relevance.
No. So what prompted them to do that? Well, Tucker, who flew all over the campaign year, stops on Air Force One, who had Trump's private cell phone number, who went to Mar-a-Lago, whose son was appointed by the vice president and part of the administration, he fell out. He called him up and he said, you know what? I don't think you should go to Iran. Or before, in 2025 in June, it'll be World War III if you go to Iran. So my point is, he was cut off completely.
These people lose access and they become very bitter. They're out of the game. That's what's happening. And this whole third party thing is dangerous. It is very dangerous. And the reason it's dangerous is because of the Democrat Party. Because the people that are going to vote for the third party are not hardcore Democrats. They are middle of the road conservatives that feel like they've been slighted. That's who is going to vote. That's who. It's going to turn into another Ross Perot.
Like 49.8, but he ensured, I don't know if people listening will think that was a great loss, but Bob Dole the Republicans lost again. 2000, Al Gore would have won Florida had Ralph, because he only lost it by a few thousand votes, but Ralph Nader ran as a third party Green candidate and ensured in some ways that George W. Bush would be in. So Tucker knows that they don't win anything for themselves, but the whole point of it is if he can get a third party going, they will hurt Donald Trump. And then you ask yourself,
that is the whole goal. Their hatred for the president, their hatred for Trump, their hatred for America is overshadowing what the president is actually doing. And that's a damn problem. And you've got these people around like Joe Kent that are very useful idiots.
written notes to his aides because he doesn't trust the system. I mean, he should have learned that you have to micromanage these things almost, like a psycho. You have to go in and say, like, I want these done. Here's steps 1 through 10, and I'm going to be supervising every single step if you're going to be serious about actually making the intelligence community and the Department of Defense do what you say. So this is a big problem in Ukraine. He came in and he said he wanted negotiations, but he didn't aggressively go and shut off all the offensive capabilities that we are giving the Ukrainians. And the Russians saw that. And right, that's where you have Putin saying, like, okay, well, the president may have changed out, but the men, whatever phrase Putin uses, the men in the dark suits are still in charge, because he sees that even though Trump came in and Trump uses much different rhetoric than Biden and may have the best of intentions, at the end of the day, the battlefield realities didn't change in Ukraine. So Putin just said, okay, I don't really care.
Why do you think that Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent are suddenly so pro-Ukraine? What are your thoughts here? Because they try to normalize one side, they victimize the other with Iran and Israel, but I can't make out why their hatred for the president is turning their whole dynamic with the Russia-Ukraine war. Why is that flipping? And I'll say this, for anyone that believes that Ukraine is winning the war in Russia, I think you should have your head examined. Now, I believe that a lot of people are telling you they're winning, and the people that are telling you they're winning are members of the news media. And when the entire news media apparatus, which I believe gets a lot of their talking points from the CIA, when they're telling you Ukraine is winning, look the other way. Run the other way. We're getting back into this whole Biden paradigm where we're just supposed to send cash. That's not going to happen under the Trump administration. They're selling them things, but they're not sending them cash, and I'm glad they haven't.
If you read his 10-point plan, who has been closer to enacting it? Donald Trump or the opposition? Not even close. He's got a big thing about crime. Well, Donald Trump, you think that he's for no cash bail? You think he's for $950 of free shoplifting? Do you think that he's for defund the police? That he has the border? Do you think who's done more than any president in history to get a wall going, stop, catch, and release, deportation, zero Tucker? And same thing he says he even says we want to have a food policy like ours.
Tucker Carlson and the rest of his crew will not admit the policy progress, the wins that Trump has made.
If he posts something about you or he calls you, you show gratitude that he took that time for a nobody. But you don't take on this sense that you're this major influencer and the president of the United States, my God, of
seven. Now that I got you, Don, let me tell you about.
Yeah, there's 7. Hey, Don, there's 7 billion people on the planet, but I am the most important, so that's why I'm telling you what to do on Iran.
That may very well be the most important statement, the most important sentence of this entire video. Tucker Carlson thinks he is the most important man in the world. And he believes that if Donald Trump opposes him, then Donald Trump is evil. Donald Trump has to be impeached. Donald Trump has to be removed. Donald Trump is going to drop a nuke. Donald Trump is working for fill in the blank country. That is the problem. Now, there's another post here where Victor Davis Hanson just explains how and why Tucker Carlson has turned rotten. And probably the clearest thing here is Thomas Massey, Joe Kent, and others at his home in Maine shortly before unveiling a 10-point vision for America. They discussed a new political movement and urged Carlson to run in 2028. I don't believe Tucker Carlson could win I don't believe he could win anything, but there's a lot of people that do believe that he can win. Now, speaking of Marjorie Taylor Greene, she made this statement on X yesterday. We don't have the names, at least I don't. I offered to read their list of names on the House floor at the press conference that they wanted to go that route, talking about the Jeffrey Epstein victims. Now, the real important part of this is that people are starting to realize Thomas Massie and Marjorie and all these other people are not doing what they said they were going to do. Sarah Fields, hang on, Thomas, I've supported you in the past. I think I'm done. You did make the promise, so now when the people confront you or challenge you on it, you're calling them liars and they must be getting paid. This is Thomas Massie. Survivors at our press conference announced they are privately compiling their own list. This was back in September of last year. And Thomas hasn't read any names from anyone associated with them. So my big question to all of you, what happens if Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, Tucker Carlson start this third party? How many of you are going to vote for a third party? How many of you believe that this third party could do exactly what happened with Ross Perot and the Clintons? I think the easiest route for a Democrat, someone like AOC or Gavin Newsom, to win, or if they bring back Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton, the easiest way for them to win is for them not to campaign against Donald Trump. They don't even need to campaign for themselves. What they need to do is support the Thomas Massies, the Tucker Carlsons. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And you're going to see some of these left-wing candidates, these Democrat candidates, go on to Tucker's platform. And you've already seen some of it. Hunter Biden has made the rounds. Ro Khanna has made the rounds. Thank you, Sean Ryan, for platforming them. You're going to see this happen more and more. It's really going to ramp up after the midterms, but you're going to see this spike in hatred of Trump bad, Republicans bad, Democrats not that bad. That's the case that they're going to make. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.